Okay, welcome runners. This is Coach Michael Merlino, and on today's webinar, I'm going to go over some information on proper pacing for both training and racing. This is primarily geared towards those of you who are training for a half marathon or a marathon, even though there's some good tips here for pretty much anybody, even if you're training for, like, say, a 5K or a 10K. So let's get going. I'm just a little bit more about me. For you guys that are not in the Houston area, we're going to put this up publicly on our YouTube channel, so almost anyone can tune into it. But I'm Coach Michael Merlino. I'm a Houston, Texas-based marathon coach fitness trainer. I was an ex-corporate human resources executive for about 10 years early in my career, and then I shifted over to being a fitness trainer. I've been training folks for about 15 years. I've been a marathon and a running coach for about 12, and I train a pretty wide variety of clients, from deconditioned, overweight, to underweight, trying to pack some muscle on, to and working a lot with now with runners and sports performance too, so kind of all over the map. So thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. My goal for this webinar is to discuss proper pacing for both training and racing leading up to your goal race. I'm going to review a couple great websites I love. athlinks.com, which is a great, it's basically a race archive of a race time archive where you can actually pull up your races from around the country and add them to your profile and have a good history of all your racing. Macmillan calculator, we'll talk about that and how to use that to estimate your pacing for your upcoming race based on your current race times, and just kind of go over a pacing case study of one of my runners who's currently training for the Honolulu Marathon here in Houston. Okay. So first off, before we get going, I want to have everyone kind of, ask themselves this question. What's your goal? Okay. So, because everyone that gets involved in the sport of running is kind of doing it for different reasons. Obviously, most of us probably don't want to get slower. We want to get faster. We want to improve our running, and we probably want to minimize injuries at all costs because they get pricey and they get really frustrating. So, are you doing this to just get in shape, kind of get back in the groove? Are you running or training to race just for fun? Some people just do it for fun and sightsee a bit and travel. Are you completing your first race and in-flight running? My group, historically, about 55 to 60% of our runners every year are training for the first marathon or half marathon. And then have you been around the block a little bit, raced a few times, and looking to earn a new personal best or new personal record? So when you get involved with running, and if around a few of these, obviously you guys probably know it's kind of a battle with yourself. How do I best myself, get that new improved race time, and do that, of course, without getting injured? So speaking of injuries, I want to talk about that first, because pacing is probably the #1 reasons why, or overpacing or underpacing is one of the main reasons why I see a lot of runners in my program get hurt. Over-aggressive pacing during their training is probably the #1 culprit. This would include pacing out way too fast when their body's not used to it, or they don't have enough base build. The biggest concern is runners that run way too fast on long runs. We'll get into that later, and how that can basically rob you of your fat burning ability, which can actually increase your chances of slamming into a wall late in a marathon, for example, and get into those higher miles, 18 to 24 range. Running too many miles than what's needed to get ready for your current race, too many miles too soon, or too many miles later in the schedule when the schedule doesn't call for it, is another way to get injured. Beyond the pacing, unrealistic training and racing goals, people shooting for a race time, so they want to break a 4-hour marathon, but their body's not quite right or ready for that yet, nor do they have adequate miles yet, and then they kind of force a square peg into a round hole and can get hurt doing that too. So lack of strength, a big issue. you guys use a lot of muscles when you run, so you want to strengthen muscles across the board, and that's why I do a lot of weight training with runners. Those who do it, I see the risk of injury goes down dramatically. And of course, you want to be more flexible because tight and overworn out muscles easily create injury. Okay, so just want to review that because pacing does have a lot to do with, whether you can stay on your feet and continue to do the things you love to do, which would be running. Okay. With that in mind, I want to kind of go over this model. This is kind of, how an average human being burns body fat or burns varied fuel sources, fat, glucose or sugar. In extreme case, muscle tissue. Your body will actually break down muscle tissue for fuel, which you never want happening. So the biggest thing with this model, obviously this is when heart rate is fairly low. You're burning primarily fat stores. As it increases, it gets a little bit higher. You're burning both fat stores and readily available sugar at the muscle level, which is glucose. The pace gets too high, and you go over this right here called your anaerobic threshold. This line right here, that's when the body goes into oxygen debt, which is not a big deal if you don't stay there too long. But if you got the majority of your workout, say a long run, where you go over this threshold and you're literally in oxygen debt, what the body does, it stops burning. If there's no oxygen available, it'll actually slow down or diminish fat store burning. It'll use glucose up, but there's only a finite amount of that stored in your muscle, as you guys know, and that's why we, as runners, kind of slam into a wall late in a race. And then in the extreme case, it'll actually, if it runs out of glucose, it'll start tearing muscle tissue up for fuel, which creates a lot of nasty byproducts like lactic acid, ammonia, things like that that really slow you down and can cause muscle tissue breakdown during a race. Okay, so moral of the story here is, you guys, for the majority of your running, you shouldn't be anaerobic unless you're doing speed workouts, hill workouts, where you're actually going back over the fence and recovering. The majority of your running should be somewhat anaerobic around the edge, and then your long run should be, definitely be aerobic. Okay. Moving forward, this kind of gets into using your running gears, guys. So when we coach runners here in Houston, we don't want them always running in the same gear. Okay, always running in second or third gear. Same pace all the time. We want them varying the pace based on the distance they're doing or the intensity they're doing. So first gear would be your E run. This is your easiest run of the week. Probably scale of 1 to 10. You're probably 5 to 6. This is your weekly long run where you're actually working on endurance and training your body to burn fat stores. The second gear would be your T run. T run or walk, a little bit more intense. This would be maybe a 6.5 to 7 out of 10. This would be your kind of your shorter distance running that you do during the week. And this is just to build, this is base building, this is maintenance type stuff, okay? Third gear, this would be your P run. We like to do these on Mondays. This is like a pace run, where you run at your T level, your second gear, but then you kick it up a notch to third gear once in a while and kind of get into that 8 out of 10 range. And then come back down to your, we call your T1 pace, and recover, okay? This, like I said, this is more medium distance stuff. We use this maybe 1, maybe 2 times a week. Fourth gear, upwards of overdrive in the fifth gear. This would be hill training, speed workouts. These are shorter intervals, 100 meter, 400 meter, 800 meter, 1 mile repeats with recovery in between. And recovery is key with intervals, or it could be some short rolling hills, or it could be more like cross-country type workouts, where you're working the heart rate by climbing up a hill, randomly, okay? So yeah, you want to get to know your pace, whatever that is for you, and know your limits. The talk test is a great way. So if you're running with people that are about your pace, you should be able to hold a conversation with them. If you can't, chances are you're probably in the wrong pace group, okay? So you need to maybe back off to another group of runners. Too easy, maybe you can go up a notch, okay? You want to run your pace, not someone else's. So, obviously we're a group, training group, so on Saturdays when we do long runs, it's kind of a group mentality. We want people running together, but we also don't want people running in a pacing group that's not appropriate for them, because down the road, as we mentioned earlier, that's just going to cause injuries. and it's not going to train them to burn fat stores during the season, which is going to cheat them on race day because they won't know how to do that well, and they'll 9 out of 10 times slam into a wall if they've trained to run too fast during long runs. Okay, you want to vary your pace based on the type of run you're doing, and just to review that quick once again: the E run, easy run but longer distance; T run, midweek stuff; bread and butter training runs; and then the P run, that's that 1 to 2 runs a week where you kind of kick it up a notch and then come back down and recover. Okay. So some other racing rules to live by. You know, we're huge believers in racing, and I don't see enough runners during the season consistently racing, looking at their 5K times or 10K times to see if those are coming down, doing some double-digit racing to get ready for the marathon. So here in Houston, we just had a group that did a few weeks back a 10-mile run locally, then a half marathon here in Houston to get ready for the marathon. Half marathoners, you guys should be gunning for, say, 10K races, which are perfect tune-ups for the half marathon distance. And then you look at those times, and obviously you're only as good as your most recent race, so you can't use old race data to guesstimate what you're going to do for your upcoming race. So you got to get out there and race hard, get some solid times, and we're going to show you how to plug those into a calculator and come up with some guesstimates of what you can pace out for future races. Okay. Choose your race goals wisely, based on the season, based on what's going on with your life. We're big believers that most people should not probably be running more than 3 marathons a year. I think, honestly, 2 a year is perfect if you want to continue to PR. I see runners doing 3, 4, 5 a year, and I see a lot of runners breaking down, getting injured. And the bottom line is they're not earning PRs because the body just never quite recovers. Okay. You know, have a goal for each race. This should be a pacing goal based on what we're going to show you here soon. Both the pace that you want to lock in during that race, and you know what that net time would be for your total race chip time for that race. Okay. And then once again, you want to run your race, not someone else's. So if you are running with friends, there may come a point where you either drop your friends, find a pacer that's on the course, official pacer, and you know, run your race. That's huge if you want to get to the finish line in one piece. Okay. A couple tools I want to go over real quick today. One is called ATH links. So I'm going to go over that real quick here. You shift gears and go over to my browser, and I'm going to pull this up. So athlinks.com, great tool here that looks at millions of different race databases. You can start a free profile. I've got mine up here, and then you can put your name in there and go out and kind of fish for your race times and claim them as your own. So you guys can see here. Here's my recent times. I just claimed these 2 races that I found out here earlier when I was looking at this, and then here's my Woodlands Marathon time from last year, which was not quite a good race for me. They're 3:52, and then you can look at your whole profile. Here's my results. And this gives me a whole rundown of all the different races in the database. For me, it's really kind of cool stuff. I can sort here. I can look at all my 10K times. I can sort it by year, by date. Really cool little tool to look at what you raced in the past, but more importantly, what you've done recently. Okay. So great little tool here. So moral of the story, first off, is go out and race hard, race aggressively, get some recent race times. I'm going to go back over here, and then we're going to talk about McMillanRunning.com. Greg McMillan, world-class running coach. He's coached a lot of Olympians and professional coaches worldwide. I love his calculator. Kind of takes one of the basic running algorithms that you guys may have seen on, say, runnersworld.com, but he's tweaked it based on his experience with runners, and it's probably one of the best, most accurate guesstimate, or give you a guesstimate of what your upcoming race times are going to be. Okay, so let's move forward on that. Kind of show you. I'm going to go over Helen's profile in a second, but I tell you what, I'm going to go back over to the browser, and I'm going to go back over and show you this. So what I did here, I'm at Macmillan Calculator. And my case study today is Helen Mathis. She was our Rookie of the Year last year within flight running. Barely got through the Houston Marathon. Actually, she had a medical issue about, I'm not exaggerating, guys, about 300 yards from the finish. Had to stop the race. They allowed her to continue, but she just couldn't do it. So still got a medal for the race, Houston Marathon. Sent her medal in the mail, but obviously Helen wants to get revenge this year, and she's going to her home state of Hawaii to run the Honolulu Marathon in December. So recently, 28th of October this year, just a few weeks ago, she ran the Houston Koala Half Marathon, got a PR there with a 2:24:55. So I put her time in Macmillan Calculator. You guys can go to MacMillanRunning.com, click on Pace Calculator. We're going to calculate her times. And then from there, I clicked on Print Your Results, and that's where I got this handy little layout here. So looking at this, Helen, this is a really solid race for her, 2:24:55 in marathon time, 11:04 pace. Perfect weather day here in Houston when she ran that, 44 degrees, low humidity. And that projects her out to a 1:05 10K. And it shows her that for her Honolulu Marathon, which she just ran her peak run for, 21 miler, she's going to run this on December 9th. It projects her out to a 5:04:59 race time. So that's a pretty solid race for her, and that would be a huge improvement over what she ran Houston in last year. Okay. This also shows another few things, and we're going to talk about these, but actually we talked about this already, your E-run, which would be your long run pace. So for Helen, as you guys can see here, the marathon time should be like 11:39, but an easy run for her would be anywhere from this, 11:21 to say, 13-minute range pace per mile. I think she runs most of her long runs. Long runs should be slower than marathon time, but I think she runs most of hers in that 12-minute range, probably 12 to 12:30 range. Okay, so that checked out pretty good. Steady state runs, this is what you should be running, what we call your T run, so your bread and butter training run. And then when she's kicking it up a notch, she would go up to what we call a tempo run, or a more aggressive cruise interval or a tempo interval, where she would kick it up a notch about 30 to 40 seconds pace per mile quicker. Okay, and then I knew that Helen's time on the track was for 400-meter recently during her speed workouts was 2:14. So that checks out pretty close to what she's doing on the track with Coach Deval Ruiz here in Houston. So looking at all these numbers for Helen, let's go over there. Let me switch gears and go back over and show you how this all points to the fact that her pacing's pretty much on the money across the board, and I think she's headed for probably a good solid around a 5-hour marathon, okay, assuming she doesn't get any crazy weather in Hawaii. So let's go back over here, show you guys this on the screen. So here's her case study. Recent PR 2:24. That's what I plugged into Macmillan. That comes up with a 2:06 to 2:14 400-meter speed workout, right on the money for her. Her T1 pace 10:34 to 11:04. If she kicks it up a notch for her P runs, she can go upwards of a 10:05 to a 10:26. Long run 11:24 to a 12:24 range, which, as you know, right here is slower than her predicted marathon pace, which would be 11:34. Probably more in that 12-minute range, which projects out to a 5:04:59 Honolulu marathon time. So she's totally on track with her pacing. This just tells me that she's doing things right. Now, you guys may run your own numbers and find that, what you're doing may be a little bit flawed. Maybe you have to back off on your long run. Maybe you need to get a little bit more aggressive with your T run midweek, but run the numbers on your own and just kind of play what if and just maybe put some of these things into play with your training, okay? We can't look in a crystal ball to predict your race times, but I'll tell you what, it's not an exact science, but plugging things into a solid calculator like this sure beats guessing, which most runners do. They just get on a race course and they kind of guess at their pace, and that's never good. So setting a realistic pace goal with your previous race times, looking at your upcoming distance is probably a great idea, and Macmillan calculator will help you with that. Once you get that predicted marathon or half marathon time, you guys should be practicing that pace, which is a little bit more aggressive than your long run pace, and do that in place of your T runs about twice a week, 4 to 5 weeks before your marathon. So at that point in time, you're not going to really improve your running much by speed work and things. So you guys want to lock that pace in, that predicted goal pace for your marathon, so you just know it really well. So when you get up on race morning, there's no question what that is. You can go out and just have a really solid race, okay? You guys got to know yourself too, so you got to know what type of runner you are. This gets in a fast twitch, slow twitch. Are you more of a long distance person or short distance? Fast twitch, obviously, are more sprinters. Slow twitch, more endurance runners. So if you're more of you're a stronger 5K or 10K racer, then you may want to take what Macmillan gives you, maybe adjust it downward if you're a person that has a tendency to fade maybe late in races, okay? I'm kind of the opposite of that. I just, I could probably race faster at the 5K, 10K level. Don't enjoy the pain that goes with racing hard during a 5K or 10K. I'd much rather run a marathon or half marathon and have more time to kind of work on pacing, make up for my lost time if I have to do it. So for me, I know that the long distance numbers are going to be pretty solid for me. I'm just not, but I'm not going to, I can't take taking a 5K time or 10K time for me to look at marathon time. I'm gonna probably have to take that 5K time and maybe adjust it slightly. Okay. Always keep in mind too, the heart rate is the true driver of your training and your pacing. That's a whole other webinar, believe me, when you get into what your heart rate should be when you race. Okay. This gets into something called VO2 max testing, which I do with my practice. You guys want to see a great video? Had the opportunity to train Kristen Kane, one of the local Fox 26 reporters here in Houston, and Dr. Jim Seifert, the weather guy. So we did some live VO2 testing in the studio, and you guys want to check that out. You can go to youtube.com/inflightrunning, which is our in-flight running video channel. I would highly recommend that you click on subscribe so you guys get updates and when we launch new videos. This video will actually be on the YouTube channel. So this is just a medical grade test. You guys have probably seen the Nike commercials where we crank up the incline every so often, put this mask over your nose and mouth, and this test will determine where your heart rate is when you go over that anaerobic threshold, when you go into oxygen debt. If we know those zones, then along with pacing, you can use a heart rate monitor and run in zones that you know are not going to be anaerobic, or maybe purposely anaerobic if you're doing, say, track or speed workouts, and then looking at that heart rate, making sure it goes down to a certain point so you've got adequate recovery before you hit or you knock out your next interval during say an interval training workout. Okay, just makes you more efficient. I've used this with my racing before. For example, I ran the Buffalo, New York Marathon in my hometown, and I just did a VO2 test. And I said, for this race, I'm just not going to go anaerobic. I'm going to, kind of hit that threshold and not go over it. So I ran a pretty solid race. I think when I tested myself, my VO2 at the time, I could tolerate a 172 heart rate without going anaerobic. Raced that race in the upper 160s, maybe slightly over when I hit a hill. I had 20-mile-per-hour headwinds on that course, so a little tougher, but for the most part, it was a great race. I didn't feel all beat up at the end. I think it was a 3:39 race, which is decent for me, not a PR, but I learned from that experience that the heart rate has a lot to do with how you perform but I had a pretty solid pace and I didn't bonk at the end. Just, took it in pretty strong. Okay, so if you guys are interested in this testing, you can email me, michael@merlinofitness.com, and check out the video, and that gives you a lot of good information on that. Okay, so we'll cover that in a future webinar. We'll have some videos and show you some different heart rate zones and how we do that. Okay. Getting into pacing, just a reminder, I love this quote from Ryan Hall. This is a picture of Ryan when he competed here in Houston and won a spot in the Olympics in London. He says here, I don't think about the miles that are coming down the road. I don't think about the mile I'm on right now. I don't think about the miles I've already covered. I think about what I'm doing right now, just being lost in the moment. Now, if you guys can figure out how to do that, you're a great runner. But honestly, if you practice your pacing, if you know your pacing like clockwork, like a human stopwatch, you can go into these races a lot calmer and pick them off one at a time, not really have to worry about where you are in the course. Just going with the feel of your body, knowing that you're prepared and knowing that that goal pace that you've set out to go after is pretty solid because you've practiced it. Okay, so just want to remind you of that. A few things here. We've got tons of free resources from my training site, merlinofitness.com. Outfit Houston is my new outdoor resistance training classes. Do a lot of work with runners and getting them stronger to prevent injury. In-Flight Running is our marathon, half marathon training group, and No Boundaries is a nationally recognized 5K, 10K program that we do here in Houston in partnership with Fleet Feet and New Balance shoes. So that's a great program for true beginners or runners who kind of getting back in the groove of their running. Okay, a lot of free information. We've got Facebook pages, Twitter pages. I've got some things on Pinterest now. Of course, I already mentioned our YouTube channel, youtube.com/inflightrun. You guys can check that out. Just to kind of show you some of these things. Here's our Facebook page, inflightrunning.com. So we've got about 1,200 folks on here across the globe. We're always putting some great tips out here, so you guys like that page. It's good stuff out there. Here's our YouTube channel. You guys, as soon as you go in, excuse me, go into the channel, you see a video of the video I did on Fox News, that live VO2 test, so check that out. Also have some great videos, or our favorites from across the web, on anything from injury prevention, foam rolling. Great video here you guys can check out on running form and technique by Coach Bobby McGee. One of the best videos I found on how runners should run, proper running form. So a lot of cool stuff out here you guys can check out. Okay. So check that out. Join me for some live webinars in the future. This one's not live, but in the future I want to do live ones. We can actually fit 50 people on a live webinar. That's great because we can open it up for questions at the end, get a little bit more interactive with it, which gets some great discussion going. So you guys tune into Facebook for alerts on upcoming webinars, and then you can just jump online live. We usually do those like midweek and on evenings, and then we record the call, the screen capture, and we'll pop it up on YouTube in case you miss it, okay? So we also offer a lot of things. I mentioned metabolic testing, a lot of off-the-menu things, services we do here in Houston. Sports massage. Coach Duvall is a licensed massage therapist. He's the other founder, head coach of In-Flight Running. I do free fitness and nutrition consultations. So if you guys are here locally in Houston, you want to come in the office and just kind of get a gut check of where you're at, I offer that for free, about a 1-hour consultation. Outfit Houston's my outdoor resistance training class. And then both Coach Duvall and I do one-on-one fitness training and run coaching. And my new project is doing online fitness training and run coaching online by way of Skype. So doing some things where I do conference calls with runners around the country, write them training schedules and talk to them every week about their training. And that's working out pretty well here. Great opportunity working with runners across the country, okay? If you guys have questions about any of the material I shared with you today, you don't have to be an in-flight runner or in our club So by all means, if you have any questions, you can get me, just get me direct here at michael@inflightrunning.com, or you can reach me here in Houston, area code 713-523-2577. So thank you guys for listening in today. Remember that you're only as good as your most recent race, and you want to get the pacing right for efficient training to avoid injury, and to almost assure yourself that that next race you've got a great chance for a new personal record. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.